There is a particular kind of arrogance that only appears right before the impact. You see it in a pilot pushing the aircraft a little harder than the safety brief suggested. You see it in a system that believes its own propaganda. See, the footage from the recent airshow crash in Dubai is tragic. For one reason above all, that pilot in the cockpit didn't realize that he was seconds away from the disaster. He thought he was in control until he wasn't. Welcome to Fourth Pro Post English, weekly analysis of Pakistani politics. India is having its own bad season of we are in control. From electoral politics in Bihar to military image to foreign policy. The myth of flawless professional superpower is colliding with a very clumsy reality. A country that has converted its population into foot soldiers for religious projects now finds that everything else, institutions, standards, and professional competence, quietly decays in the background. As a Pakistani, we have seen this film before. We just had a different book in our hands when we watched it. But while India is catching up with our old mistakes, we are busy attempting speed runs of new blunders. This Bushra Bibi saga has run its course. It was supposed to be game changer. It barely managed to be a short-term distraction. So now a new card is being prepared. Punishment for General Faiz Hameed. On paper, that sounds like accountability. In practice, it opens a door you cannot easily close. Once you normalize the politically driven punishment of senior generals, you are inviting every future ruler, faction and grievance holder to walk through that door and settle their own scores in the same way. Because this is a score settling too. According to that Bushra Bibi article, General Faiz Hameed stopped or pulled General Munir, which is right now the most powerful person in Pakistan, pulled him down from the post of DGISI. So this is a personal vendetta at the end of the day. It's not a justice pipeline. It is a revenge tunnel. And every body after today or after the punishment will walk through that. The problem for the system is simple. If these distractions don't work, public attention goes back to the core issue, the 27th Amendment. Lawyers have understood the danger faster than the most politicians, especially in Sindh. Bar councils that originally looked quiet or divided, which are still looking divided, have beginning to shift because they have realized, or they are being realized by their own lawyers, that this constitutional amendment or this constitutional court is not just another bench, it's a supra-court, a structure that can be used to stamp legality on virtually anything. Governor's rule, in KPK, banning a political party, PTI, trying civilians in the military-style forms, maybe Khan, rewriting the balance between center and the provinces, this NFC and this everything. All by routing cases through this newly formed Sarkari court, aka the Constitutional Court, whatever you want to call it. Once you have built a legal machine like that, you don't need martial law. You can keep the Constitution framed on the wall and still do everything martial laws or the dictatorships used to do. This is where the vanity comes in. In the movie The Devil's Advocate, Al Pacino's devil calls vanity his favorite sin. It fits. At a certain level of power, you're no longer content with winning. You want the universe itself to confirm that you deserve to win forever. When you watch the impossible things, such as this 27th Amendment, become routine at your orders, laws banned, opponents crushed, courts reshaped, your ego stops needing breaks. but you should apply the brakes. I look at this Trump. He seems to be the more sensible than we credit him for. I mean, we thought he will not apply brakes. But he did. Look at his meeting with Zoran Mamdani. This made Trump much bigger rather than him being smaller. If somebody calls him Zionist on his face, a mayor of New York to the president of the United States, his image grows more. See, and when you don't apply brakes, you start needing new roads. Look at the list of modern strongmen who started as a necessary leaders and drifted into something darker. Erdogan, Khamenei, Putin, Hasina, Modi, although they are all civilian leaders. We do not have this kind of dictatorship coming along. We have a different kind of dictatorship coming along in Pakistan, but these are all civilian leaders. But the common pattern is not how they come in. It's how they refuse to leave. The moment society tries to correct its course, the moment society throws them out, their inner dictator surfaces. And that's what is happening right now. See, Bangladesh, look at the recent warning. You had an authoritarian leader there. She was populist at first, and then she became authoritarian. An angry public, a deep backlog of injustice. The response to the revolution, to me, is shameful. What was the response? It was symbolic death sentence just at the top. While the institutional machinery that enabled everything remains largely intact. The Janta is still sitting there. Missing person cases are still lingering. The correction was only emotional, not structural. That kind of justice doesn't heal. It polarizes and signals to the next ruler. Rule as harshly as you like, and if it goes wrong, we will sacrifice one face and keep the system intact. That's how establishments survive. That's how the political thought survives. Now, look at the Pakistan through that lens. Here, we don't even complete the cycle of populism. The international status quo forces and the local establishment shares one core belief. International establishment forces and the local establishment, they share one core belief. Genuine populists are way too risky. That is the context in which you could read this. People like Epstein, who openly have discomfort with Imran Khan. It isn't about liking or disliking Khan personally. It is about global risk managers sending a signal. This man interferes. This man will interfere with our preferred level of predictability. Once that preferences matches with the local paranoia about losing control, you get the joint project. Freeze the system, jail the variable. Then we layered the Gaza on the top of this, or the other internationally American relevance, even Afghanistan. We layered all of it. Pakistan has moved from being a more moral voice on Palestine to being an eager implementer of Gaza's, Trump's Gaza's play. Marketed as a ceasefire. But that plan is structured long-term takeover. China and Russia voted against it in United Nations Security Council. They didn't vote against it out of their sudden love of Gaza, but because they can easily see what this regional board will look like with American direct involvement on grounds, secured by military forces of a nuclear state, Pakistan. See, we are clearly signaling openness to joining this international stabilization force. In practice, we will end up policing a post-war arrangement rejected by the very resistance on ground. In short, we will fight Hamas. So we are volunteering soldiers to guard a deal that formalizes the defeat of the side we publicly claim to support. To justify this, a familiar argument is wheeled out. The state is above politics. These are strategic decisions. Ordinary people don't understand these kind of things. And we should think about saving people in Gaza and not about these nitty-gritties of the tactical things. This is nonsense. Saving people by surrendering the very state to the very people who killed them. I mean, isn't this surrender disguised as the realism? Well, the state is nothing. In your other argument that the state is everything, the state is nothing but a structured politics. The constitution is a political bargain. Foreign policy is the series of political choices depending on the people's vote. Saying the state versus politics is like body versus skeleton. You can hate politicians all you want. But the moment you pretend that the state lives in some sacred apolitical cloud, you give unaccountable actors permission to do whatever they want to do it and call it a national interest. And that is exactly what is happening here. I mean, the examples are being floated like Saudi Arabia and China. Role models, prosperous, orderly, apolitical. That's a caricature, sir. Both systems have their own histories of upheaval, their own internal politics, and their own social contracts. You cannot import Chinese-style control without Chinese-style planning, discipline, and the decades of strategic continuity. You cannot copy Gulf-style order or without the Gulf-style resources and very specific elite bargains. Pakistan wants the aesthetics without homework. That brings us to the 28th Amendment, the sequel being written while the first one is still being digested. Strip away the packaging and three main objectives appear. First, minerals and agriculture / water. Control over resources is the real currency in today's game, especially in terms of America. Copper, rare earth minerals, water, wheat. Changing which tier of government controls which department, pulling key subjects back to the center, or carving FATA out of KPK are all tools aimed at the same goal. Lock resources control into the hands that cannot easily be rotated by elections. Second, fiscal flows and NFC logic. Whether they rewrite National Finance Commission outright or invent a creative formula around it, the idea is to keep more money at the top while pressing it as a reform. That will hit provinces differently. But one thing is clear, KPK is expected to scream. In fact, the scream is almost like a feature, like a plan. See, a province that resists these things can be painted as reckless, uncooperative, or worse. And that could be used to justify tougher central actions and satisfy political wishes of few in terms of PTI. Political wishes. Third, the local governments and the administrative units, the most important one in the 28th Amendment. Strong local government sounds progressive, and under honest leadership it can be. But here, the pattern looks different. The plan seems to be weakening the political relevance of provinces, then supercharge certain city level or district level structures that are easier to manage from the center. They will dress it up as in efficiency and service delivery. And you get the perfect infrastructure for a future of direct centralized rule without ever formally declaring the old model as dead. Because once the 28th Amendment is done, what's the need for the bloody civilians? All of this would still be reversible if the system had any genuine tolerance for resistance. Right now, it doesn't seem like it. The only real counterforce right now are lawyers. Elements within the judiciary and the establishment, I call them affectees of the 27th Amendment, and the pressure building in KPK. These three things are the most important things. Judges are quietly pushing back through resignations and petitions. Lawyers are mobilizing in bar rooms and streets, and KP is being deliberately cornered. No meaningful meeting with Khan, of the CM Afridi. Visible humiliation of the ministers outside the Adiala jail. Intensified operations in KPK and trial balloons about the governor rule. Until someone in Peshawar or beyond snaps in a way that can be framed as separatist or terrorist rather than political. This is an incredibly dangerous game to play with the region that has a strong identity, a recent history of sacrifice, and the deep representation inside the very security institutions you want to lean on. Meanwhile, the notice where the system is smooth and where it is strangely stuck. On the judicial side, everything moves like a factory line. The Constitutional Court is created, judges are slotted in, transfer lists are drawn, appointments in key councils get done, resignation from within are ignored or replaced. On the command and control side, suddenly things hesitate. The Chief of Defence Forces notification hangs in air. The future of Vice Chief role is vague. Key security appointments like this National Security Commander of the Strategic Command look more provisional than permanent. The implementation of Article 243 changes keep getting delayed from the execution. Now that raises the question. Well, at the same time, the National Assembly and the Senate are summoned for a crucial joint meeting. Then the movement quietly disappeared from the schedule, which doesn't mean the sitting is cancelled. But all of this suggests that something is jammed. Because why are breaks on implementation of Article 243? And why is session being called on 27 November? Just 2 days before major reshuffling in Pakistan military. What are the possibilities for this? See, one possibility, separate CDF from Army Chief. That would be the climb down disguised as a sophistication. It would signal that the stakeholders inside the system, the affected parties or the affectees, have pushed back enough or forced enough to redesign. There are chances for this. Sudden change in CM KPK's stance regarding military action in his province. Ansar Abbasi's journalist come reporter for the establishment suggesting Khan should be moved to Banigala from jail. If we correlate this, all of this, with no movement on implementation of Article 243, sudden sitting of the parliament 2 days before the retirement suggests there are changing, which may favor the political turmoil, which may bring the political turmoil down, which may suggest that there may be settlement between Khan and the establishment. Option number 2, kill or downgrade the vice chief role that appeared as suspicious or a suspicious leak in the earlier framework. Closing one power loopholes and tightening the hierarchy around a single top office. Now this is more threatening than before. We all know Army Chief is the power center. Whoever DGISI reports to is the power center. So if CDF and the Army Chief are the same and there will be no Vice Chief, there will be no 4-star Vice Chief, then all leaks are sealed, which is a dangerous situation. Now the option number 3, do nothing visible. Let the session quietly die and then push through the original plan by brute force notifications around the 27th of November. That would confirm that the internal objections from the powerful quarters have been overridden and that the fight has moved decisively outside the system. Next week sits somewhere inside all these 3 options. So if you want a simple filter through which we view the chaos, Gaza, IMF, minerals, ISF, Trump, India, KPK, GSP+, everything. Here it is. Ignore the noise. Ignore all of it. Watch Article 243 and the command notification. That's where the politics lies in Pakistan next week. If they come through without meaningful correction, the state is choosing centralisation over consent, coercion over compromise, and the long bet on a vanity over risky bet on democracy. It will still talk about reform, growth, and peace, but the architecture will be designed for permanent exception. If they stall, fracture, or reverse, it means the system has discovered a limit even it cannot cross without breaking itself. That doesn't automatically deliver justice or democracy, but it does create breathing space. And breathing space is where real politics, real resistance, and real negotiations can begin. At some point, people have to decide whether they want to live forever in the waiting room, waiting for the right time, the right leader, and the right international mood, or whether they are willing to risk the only thing they actually control in their story. Not the outcome, just the decision to take a chance.